Hello there. So sometimes I make films when I really don't want to make them, and it's a sense of it needs to be done. I would like to have just finished with the last one I made. So it's 2.5 days now since I was offered a tiny little dab of the psilocybin mushrooms, and to my surprise my integration is continuing. It's quite late at night, it feels it to me, and I've been taken into looking at trauma, and I came across a 1-minute film by Dr. Gabor Mate, and the moment I first came across this guy originally I thought, right, this is someone who knows, rather like Kathy O'Brien, who wrote the book PTSD Time to Heal, which is available as an ebook for $12, and if you haven't got $12 it's free. You do have to order it through her as an ebook. So I was going to talk about how I'm feeling, and that's not an easy thing to do, so let me explain. I just finished reading a book by an Australian author, and it's about a woman, young woman, 25, and she's never fallen in love, had a significant relationship in her life, and she comes from a broken family. Her mother abandoned her and she lives with her dad, and then she gets a place on her own. She got 3 degrees in art, 3 arts degrees, that's right, and I just have to say this, it'll help me to get into what I've got to talk about. So she falls in love with someone in the office, and they get together, and they're starting a relationship, and at a certain point she discovers he's already married and living with his wife, and it freaks her out, and she goes through a tortuous, arduous time, and it's a classic story. He eventually gets his wife pregnant, and he's still in love with her, and she's still in love with him, and she's hoping he's going to leave his wife, his pregnant wife at this point, and she needs this relationship, and the guy acts like he needs it too, but the bottom line is he doesn't leave his relationship with his wife, and she ends up abandoned. And throughout this entire book, so much of the book is about her feelings and how awful it is for her, and she spends a huge amount of time crying, unable to function in daily life, having to take time off work, abandoning her friends, going to the other side of the world to try to escape things. And it's like her life is a total train wreck. And what I realised when I finished the book is that this is a person with normal feelings. I've never been able to understand people like this, because that's not how it is for me. So I met a woman, and eventually we got married. Well, I met a woman, and very shortly after we met she became pregnant, and I was faced with a choice, and I chose to go with the experience. And she wanted us to get married, and I wanted to stay free, and I felt her needs were more important than mine, so we got married. And she had cancer, and she had cancer for 25 years. All the time I knew she had cancer, and eventually she died. Now I'm contrasting my story with the story in the book. Now if this woman had been through what I've been through, I suppose her life would have been like a total train wreck. I don't know, but my point is that because of what I've been through with regards to trauma, whatever happens in my life, no matter how wonderful or awful, I just deal with it. And that's partly why I have a lump in my neck, because that takes the strain of the feelings which I'm unable to feel. So I've got my first quote for you from the book. Not the book, no, the film. Dr. Gabor Maté film, someone made a comment, and I thought, yeah, I can relate to that. And this is what they say. They say trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you when you were traumatized originally. So I look at myself, compared with a lot of people, as someone who doesn't express their feelings to the world. It's not that I don't feel, I do feel. However, whatever I feel doesn't stop me from functioning. There seems to be a fundamental difference. So I did, confide in someone who asked me to confide in them. And this is before I came across the PTSD Time to Heal book, before I realised that there's actually better ways to deal with this and to actually share with someone about it. And I shared, and immediately having done so, I said I had to just go and take some space, and I took some space and I had to smoke, probably 2 or 3 smokes actually. And I was completely re-traumatised by talking about what happened to me when I was a child. And eventually I went back in the house, and the person was very distressed because I wasn't able to answer the questions that she had for me as soon as I'd finished telling her about what happened to me. So this is all quite a thing for me, and that's why I'm talking about it. She wasn't able to understand that I was re-traumatised to the point I couldn't speak. And this is something that is quite a big part of my life. So I love to dance, as many of you know, and I love ecstatic dance. And yesterday it was my favourite DJ's birthday, and he did a 2-hour set, and it was just wonderful. I danced, it was great. And in the evening, went back and danced some more for his celebration. And the way it is for me is that I see other people on the dance floor, and they will move towards someone, they'll start dancing with that person. I can't do that. It's not something that is an option for me. And there are many times I've criticised and judged and condemned myself for this. And it's like, come on, look, everyone else does it. Just take the risk, just take the risk, just take the risk. And I can't. And the reason I can't do that is because of how it is for me. And so one of the things that this 1-minute film will reveal to you is that when a person has something that happens to them in their present day life that has a reflection and triggers the original instant, they are feeling the same hurt as they felt at the original time. So just the idea of going up to someone and dancing with them actually fills me full of terror and full of another emotion, which, and it's typical for me in this situation, and that's when I can't remember what it is, which is frustrating. But it's terror, and it's something else, and I can't remember what it is that happens. And it's like, yeah, this is really hard going. And then the other thing is I want to speak about is there's a thing called a twin flame relationship, when we have a relationship with someone which is so extraordinary and profound. I'll attempt, if I possibly can, to define twin flames in the description or in the comments. I can't actually do that now. And when that relationship ended, that was for me actually even worse than all of the many deaths I've had. It was worse for me than the death of my sister, my mother, my father, and the woman I married. It was worse than each one of those. And yet, if anyone had seen me in those days, then they would have been able to have a conversation with me, and there wouldn't appear to have been anything wrong. And I carried on living my days. I was actually in India at the time, a stranger in a strange land, the first time I ever went there. And the person that I had a twin flame relationship with had just walked out the door without telling me they were going to do so, and never saw them again. And it's like, if that happened to the woman I'm reading about in the book, she would have just been copious floods of tears and desperately trying to talk to people, and in a terrible state and won't be able to work, won't be able to do anything, won't be able to eat and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, none of that happens to me. And so I've been kind of trying to understand, why is that, you know? Why don't I have the feelings that other people do? But actually I do have the feelings, but I don't express them the way other people do. That's the point I'm trying to make. And so what Gabor Mate says, he says when you have these really severe traumas, then what happens is, if that wound is touched, it's just as painful as the very first time the wound was created in you. And the second thing, then scar tissue is formed over it, and when the scarring happens, then the nerve endings kind of get deadened. So that means we don't have the same access to the feelings as other people do. So I want to be really clear about this. When my twin flame walked out on me whilst I was asleep in India, it was an utterly devastating experience. And as I say, and I don't feel at all proud about this, but actually it was more devastating than all the deaths I've been through. And that's a pretty weird thing to say, even the death of my wife. It was. Partly it was the suddenness, because with so many, or with all my deaths except for one, it was a long drawn out process. But with that particular partner leaving, it was instantaneous. I went to sleep and a couple of hours later I woke up and they were gone. And there was no note, and I've never had any, that's it, you know, over kind of thing. So, yeah, utterly devastating, and yet unable to fully connect with that. And so I want to connect with people on a dance floor the way people do quite normally, and I just can't do it. And so I've had to accept that there's something that isn't an option. I can only connect with someone on a dance floor if I know them really well and I feel safe with them. But if there's the slightest possibility that I wouldn't be safe with that person, I'm not going to go near them. I might look at them while I'm dancing, and certainly not for any length of time, but I wouldn't even want to get too close. It's like that, you know. And so I want to say some more about Kathy O'Brien's book PTSD Time to Heal. So when it comes to trauma, there's PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, if you've had many traumas, and such as myself, then it's not that, it's CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. However, in her book, her ebook, about halfway through, she mentions something called DID, which I'd never heard of before, which is dissociative identity disorder. And that is defined very precisely. Dissociative identity disorder is the mind's sane response to trauma too horrific to contemplate. Which is why I apologise to that person. I made a terrible mistake, even though they wanted to know what happened to me. I didn't realise, but I shouldn't have told them. It's not safe for me to tell people because it has too severe an effect on them. And in fact, all I do is I re-traumatise myself, and they experience a degree of trauma to which they are capable of being empathic. The more empathic they are, the more traumatised they would feel if I was to tell them what had happened to me when I was a kid. So it's a really hard thing to carry, and it's also really hard because I realised I wanted to share what I'm sharing with you, with someone face to face, and I just couldn't think of anyone I could do that with. And I've got a lot of people who love me and care for me, and I somehow couldn't do it. It's just, no. But I'd really like to, so here I am, sharing with whoever's watching this. So then there was another film that came up from Dr. Gabor Mate, and what it was saying is, I only read the title, and the title is Healing Trauma Through Authenticity. And I don't need to watch the film because I know exactly what it means. What it means is if I don't tell anyone how I am, that is me stuck. So I've made this film very selfishly on the one hand, but on the other hand very altruistically. It's selfishly because I can see, as soon as I saw the title of that film, my one opportunity to heal myself more fully than I am already, having done so much work, How many times have I thought I completely healed myself from all traumas? And now I take the blue medicine, the mushrooms, and it's 2.5 days later and I'm reflecting on how it is to be dancing and not able to dance with anyone because of the terror and the other thing that kicks in, which I will probably remember when I finish making the film. These two things kick in and it's like, no, can't do it no matter how much I want to, and I have to let go of the wanting to do it and accept, okay, that's available for other people. So what I can do is I can just look at other people dancing, I can enjoy the fact that they're able to do it and still I'm not. So that's the selfish reason of making this film. The altruistic reason is I know I'm not on my own. There are so many people, and what's happening in the world is exponentially. The numbers of people that have been through the sort of stuff I've been through is becoming more and more and more. Because what's happening, we're living in a world where, yeah, the number one growth industry in the world is not guns and arms sales, it's not pharmaceutical drugs, and it's not illegal drugs, it's the sex trafficking of children. Children is the number one profit generating commodity in the world in terms of actual income generation, which is such a horrific thing to say. So I know that so many of our children in the world today are experiencing way beyond PTSD and PTSD. They're going straight into dissociative identity disorder. And so I suppose my answer to myself, I'm making this film partly to try to understand what the hell's going on. And I just see it, it's the word dissociation. So when an event happens in my daily life, if I feel rejected, if I feel lost, if I feel isolation or any of those things, I go into a dissociative state quite naturally. What was very surprising about Cathy O'Brien's ebook PTSD Time to Heal is over and over again in the book she mentions the fact that medicinal cannabis is the sovereign remedy for this condition. And throughout my life, since I was 19 pretty much, that medicine has been my close friend and ally. Only what I'm choosing to do is I'm choosing to thank the medicine and love the medicine and move on. And what I've been invited to do, particularly by certain members of the family, is to embrace the fungi as my next step in life, which is what I'm doing. And I go to a breaking convention and I have no intention of taking any substances whatsoever, and then someone offers me it, and it's like being a shaman. I don't think about what to do, I take the guidance and act, and the guidance was say yes. And I thought, my thoughts is, well, that's going to be more difficult to take notes for the rest of the conference, and it was like, screw that, just do it. And so I'm so glad I did, and I missed the last day of the conference. I'm so glad I did, and I danced most of yesterday, which is what I needed to do. So glad I did. And whatever happens is the way things are meant to be. That's my philosophy in life. Whatever happens is the right and the just thing for you and me. That's my philosophy. So I don't regret anything in that sense, and I accept every single thing that ever happened to me as part of my journey. And there are times it's really bloody difficult, and it is tonight. So I can see that when something happens to do with the isolation or the rejection or any of these things, or not even, no one is rejecting me, I'm just dancing on dance floor. I want to dance with someone, I can't, so I reject myself. Self-rejection is one of the really extreme things that happens to people, so I simply dissociate. And so when my twin flame walked out of where we were staying in India whilst I was asleep, my response to that abandonment was dissociation. And the response to every single death I've been through is dissociation. And I do feel quite grateful that with all of the deaths except for my sister, I have actually had the opportunity to be present to their end of life process, which has enabled me to grieve, I feel, but not grieve the way other people do, It's not like I'm a complete mess on the floor or any of this stuff, not ever able to access the state, but at least I felt the feelings, And then when they're dead, it's like there isn't any, because I felt everything I could feel. Is how it feels to me. But I don't totally know that's the case, and that's what I'm attempting to clarify in this film, because for me, being able to have a smoke has been so helpful throughout my life as a way to deal with basically becoming into a dissociated state. And what it does is it reconnects me with my heart, frankly, and that's why it's been such valuable and useful medicine for me. Only I've reached a point in my life I want to manage without. And I am only able to do so because of the soul retrieval I had, which happened around about the time when I was pretty much instructed, again as a shaman, I received the instruction, okay, you're going to go and have that smoke now, it's going to be your last one, okay, so make the best of it, enjoy it, go and have it. I didn't want to have it, so I went out and had it. I didn't enjoy it, but I had it, and I haven't had any since. So this is where I'm at, and there's all these things I'm ready to put into operation, and I want to make all these things happen in terms of offering my services more than I've been able to do, because I've been going through this inner journey, and I always feel like I'm 95% of the way there now. I still can't get on because I'm still dealing with this. So this is why I've not been in touch with certain people to finally progress to the next stage. It's why I still feel like I haven't fully grown up, and it feels like it's to do with this trauma which is still affecting me. And living where I do and having the ability to be so close to Glastonbury and all the wonderful things that's going on there, I've mostly chosen things which don't involve speaking and conversation. Singing, no conversation. Ecstatic dance, no conversation. I do really well at this, and I like to do things, I like to be helpful, I like to wash the dishes, I like to clean things. It makes me feel good. Conversations, when I feel safe enough with that person, then it's possible. But how do I feel safe enough to have a conversation with someone if I haven't had enough conversations to feel safe with them? Bit of a catch-22, as you can see. So my progress in getting to know people has been incredibly painfully and lamentably slow at times, and that's something else. I might as well just accept that as well. And some people won't have the patience, and I need to accept that too. So this is the reason, the second reason, the altruistic reason. If you know someone and you quite like them and you like to get to know them better, and yet somehow it doesn't seem to be you get to have the chance to have the conversation with them, you might like to have to start things off. Be aware they might be suffering from CPTSD or dissociative identity disorder, in which case they might really want to have a conversation with you and they just don't know how to do it. And what happens to me sometimes someone will just take the chance and initiate a conversation with me. And when the wind is blowing in the right direction, it's brilliant. And then I start to become friends with that person. It's lovely. And if something happens to trigger that old wound, then I've just gone and dissociated. I mean, yesterday someone simply said my name, and I looked at the person, and I was gone. I dissociated. I wasn't able to formulate any words. I couldn't be polite. And this is the other thing. I am so good at deep conversations with empathy, with active listening, and also I can speak in those situations. But in terms of the everyday conversation or the casual conversations you get in parties, what do they call it? There's a word for it. Conversations. Not superficial. Small talk. That's it. Usually I can't do small talk to save my life. There are very, very rare occasions when it happens and I'm able to do it, so I'm always quite shocked that I can do it. Hey, well, you act like a normal person, just a little bit of superficial conversation which didn't mean anything. Wow, well done. Fun, isn't it? Most people probably don't think there's anything to be proud of or pleased about, but to me it's a big deal if I can actually do that at all. When it happens, it's quite exciting. So that's part of the part two, which is be aware that the people you communicate with, more and more and more people, because they're going through all these terrible childhood things in life, it's been going on since long before I was born. It's been going on for thousands of years. So you'll encounter people like this and they might be a bit weird. Well, that's why. And then the other thing is you might be one of those people like me that is perceived by other people to be a bit weird. And I feel the main thing that we can do, those of us who are struggling with these long-term effects of these traumas which happened a long time ago, please have endless compassion for yourself. And when you feel isolated, please judge and criticize yourself like I've done for so much of my life. And sometimes there are these labels like autism and ADHD, and it's possible to kind of look at those and adopt those, even just temporarily and playfully for a while. And it's another way to understand, well, yeah, some people really don't find it very easy to do that. Some people struggle with parties, and yet the whole point of a party is supposed to be a good time. And I've discovered if I can go to a party and I can dance, and I can maybe just go off and wash the dishes, and if maybe one person starts talking to me and I feel safe enough and I start speaking, I mean, that's a weird thing. It applies to people in my situation that when we finally do, we usually have a lot to say because it's so difficult to make the connection. It's like, wow, okay. And then I have to monitor myself and just say, hang on, just how much you've been talking about yourself. Bring it to a close, start to find out what's going on for the other person. It's important to remember to do this. And it's really so difficult at times, particularly when finally someone is there who wants to understand you. And then there's this thing which I spoke about a while ago, which is that if you've been through some really heavy stuff, don't share about it with people. Get the book PTSD Time to Be Healed by Cathy O'Brien, or go and look at my films I've made in my back catalogue about this subject. I've made several films about it. The process is very simple, and it involves in writing out the traumas. That's what you do. You write the traumas out, and you don't get bogged down about feelings because you're probably too dissociated to do so anyway. You write the traumas out, you seal them in the envelopes, you put them away for 21 days, and only after 21 days are you permitted to open the envelope, and then you know what to do about it. That's a very brief summation of what Cathy O'Brien's 80-page ebook is telling you. So yeah, that's what you do. But if you've been through really horrific stuff, don't tell someone, even a professional. I mean, I once started to tell a medical practitioner just a tiny fragment of the least traumatic stuff that happened to me, and the guy looked absolutely terrified, and I could see that he was going to do something about some kind of a mental health intervention and get me into some fucking mental hospital, to be quite blunt with you. And I realised I needed to immediately stop what I was doing and go into total reassurance mode. I had to reassure this medical practitioner that no, it's okay. You don't have to get all the alarm bells going. You don't have to phone the emergency service. It's like, okay, this guy is functional, and just get them to calm down and quietly leave the surgery, and it was okay. So that's the other thing that I'm throwing out for you, that if by any chance you do start to say something, you might need to go into caretaking mode for the one that has just been supposedly trying to help you. But if you're dissociated, as I was in that particular situation, then that isn't going to be possible. You might not be able to help them at all. And on that really enigmatic note, I feel like that's as much as I can cope with on this subject for tonight, and I hope it's been of some use to someone. And supposedly, Dr. Gabor Mate is saying, our journey towards healing ourselves of these traumas is to be authentic, not lying, not covering up, not pretending everything's fine when it isn't. And that's it. So I'm struggling with relaunching my career, and I struggle with isolation and not being understood. And I struggle with the fact that I can't just blurt anything out to people because it isn't acceptable. So all the love to you. I very much appreciate you bothering to listen to this, and I always appreciate any comments anyone sends me, and I often forget to say that. Thank you very much. All the love to you.